Hello and welcome. I am Scrapalock, and this is City of Heroes on the Rebirth server. We are with Tiger Shrike, our level 46, hair's breadth away from 47, Stalker. She has 25.7 million experience with 126,000 to get to level 47, and our next superpower, and we have over 37 million influence. And now we are on our way to rescue Ellie Weissman, having quote-unquote defeated 65 carnies, which we did by me waiting a day and just clicking the complete mission option. Hopefully we won't end up with a bug mission in this episode, because I won't be able to get rid of the bugs by completing the mission, since you can only do that once every 3 days. But I am just not going to street hunt 65 of anything, especially not carnies. There's just no way. It would take forever and be wildly unfun. So, we are continuing with our +2 missions. At this point, I think that that's going to be the way it's going to go. We may try some +3s occasionally. I won't make you watch me run to the difficulty setting person in Steel Canyon, because there's no point to that, but in between episodes I may change difficulties here and there. The Carnival aren't so bad at +3 to 4 rather than 2 to 3. Really, they're not so horrible. They do drain your endurance, but they're not too bad. It's really the Knives of Artemis and also the Malta are just dreadful. When you get to +4, you can't one-shot the sappers and the operatives, the what are the operations engineers, and the sappers will then hit you. They will hit you. If you're not a reflex scrapper, you don't get dodge, so they will hit you and they will drain your endurance. And if it's not a sapper, it's an operations engineer, and you will not be able to one-shot him, and then he will summon his really annoying auto turret, and there's almost no way to stop at least one of those two things from happening. And if they're lower level, you can, because you can one-shot one guy and you won't miss the other one as much. You won't be as likely to miss the other one. And so you can kind of get away with it, but oh, this is great. If this is a defeat all, we're screwed, because that one is stuck. I'm just going to ignore her and run away. Maybe she'll find me. I doubt it. Yeah, probably not, because I think she's just permanently stuck in there. And so we have to really hope this is not a defeat all. It says just rescue Ellie Weissman, but you never know. Some missions are defeat all without telling you. And if it is, we will not be able to defeat her, because she is stuck in the bookcase, or whatever that is, the storage shelves. They're not supposed to spawn up there, and that's why. So it's actually a bug for her to be spawned up there. But hopefully the bug won't cause us too much trouble. I think what I may do, in the name of efficiency, because we do know that we're potentially bugged with that one villain who's stuck in the shelf, is just run to the end and see where Ellie is, and just what we're going to do is just sort of kill our way to her once we know where she is. And this way, if we have to lead her out, we can. So she's not over here, so we don't need to bother with that seneschal. There she is. Alright, so we gotta kill our way out. And then we should be fine to grab her and escort her out, and just hope that we don't have to defeat the one who's stuck in the floor, or the shelf. As you can see, at this level, it's not bad. These are +3s, and we're doing fine with them. Now, I'm not sure. Let's do a test. I'm not sure if we can one-shot the Iron Strongmen if they're red without build-up. And we can. Not bad. You can't do it with if they're purple, I think. Look at this. 3 misses in a row. I love how we killed the guy so fast he's still just standing there. Okay, now he's going to be a pain because he just turned on temporary invulnerability. But that should take care of that. And I think we're good. So now we're just going to go find Ellie and rescue her. Oh, and there's a boss, Twinkle Toes. Alright, so we're going to finish off this juggler first. She's only +2 boss, so we should have no problem with her. Not gonna bother placating. Oh, she's gonna debuff me, so let's buff ourselves in response to counteract the debuff. I assume it's an accuracy debuff. And we have leveled up. That is good news. So we're now level 47. And these guys are going to be super easy. You just can't believe how easy whites and yellows are to this character. You can see how easy oranges are, so. Alright, so Ellie gave us a clue, which we'll take a look at. She says, nobody takes the Tattler seriously. This is the paper she works for, Tiger Shrike, but sometimes we come up with some amazing stories. Like the Bands of Shu. Even the Midnight Squad didn't believe that they have the power to transport a human being to the psychic plane, but I did some checking, and it's all true. It's a complicated ritual, but I believe it can be done. And Harvey says, I don't know how to thank you for rescuing my reporter. Ellie's safe at home now. I don't think I've ever been more grateful. She's got a lot to tell us about her investigation into the Bands of Shu. Alright, so let's go to Talos Island, where we can level up. And I guess I'm going to take Revive, even though we really don't need it. I don't need this guy, because I have most of the inspirations I want. So let's go to Talos Island, and we'll talk to our buddy Luminary, who does most of my leveling up for me after 20th level, because she's right by the train station and easy to find. And it's quick to get to her, especially here. We're right next to her here. She's right here past the portal. Train up to a new level. So we can get Revive. We certainly don't need anything from Body Mastery. What does Burnout do? Allows you to know. No. Alright, we'll do Revive. And I'll just put it over, I don't know, over here. We don't really use this anymore, so get rid of that. No. Get rid of it. There we go. Okay, so Revive will help us wake up if we die. And now we're going to ask Harvey Mailer for his next mission. We're level 47. And he says, you have my eternal gratitude for rescuing Ellie from the Carnival of Shadows. She's told me a lot about her investigation into the Bands of Shu, and from what she says, there's a good chance the bands could help us defeat the Carnival of Shadows. There's only one problem. The bands are currently being held by the Malta Group. Go get them. Okay, so this is going to be fun, because we're going after the Malta Group. I don't know if I've done the Malta Group with you guys watching. I can't remember. But you'll see now how this character works against +2 and +3 Malta. The absolute worst is when a +4 Malta operations engineer summons a +4 auto turret. Oh man, they are horrible, just because they have massive amounts of resistance based on, first, that the auto turrets have a lot of resistance anyway, and then on top of that, that they're +4 to you. And it is just horrible. And there's no chance they're going to kill you, but it just takes like 40 swings to take them out. It's really frustrating. And this is why, as I said last episode, this is why I'm sticking with +2. And I apologize if that makes it seem too easy, but I just can't. I can't take all the whiffing and just constantly having to hit stuff over and over again. We just need to recover the band's shoe. I don't know the way to kill these guys. But yeah, just having to fight for so long and make so many blows against an enemy that has no chance to really kill you. And it's just taking a long time to take a long time. So yeah, to me, it's just not worth doing the level 3 stuff. At +3. I don't know if that robot's gonna aggro to me. What's over here? Nothing. Yeah, so these guys we definitely want a one-shot, right? Because they're the ones that summon the Autobots. And when you get a spawn with 3 of them in it, there's an Autobot coming out no matter what. Let's see if we can pull this guy so that the Titan and the other minion don't get involved. Excellent. Now we go back into our hide, and we're gonna one-shot. That's Lieutenant. We're gonna one-shot this minion. Yeah, the +2s are just a little too easy. +3s are perfect. +4s are just a little too hard. Again, if I could make it so that I could only get +3s in missions, I would do it in a heartbeat. But the +3 missions oftentimes have more +4s than they have +3s, and they're just way too frustrating to fight. Right, and this is actually one of the arguments. I got into many of these on the forums. I've mentioned a few with Statesman, Jack Emmeritt, the lead designer of the game, where I try to explain to him that something being frustrating doesn't make it hard. Right? Again, as you can see, like, say, Rick D. drones. I could literally stand in front of a purple Rick D. drone and leave the character there and walk away from the computer and go have lunch and come back, and my character would not be dead. It would just be standing there. Right? Because the Rick D. drones don't do enough damage to overcome her 28 hit points per second of regeneration. The Rick D. drones do, I think, about 100 damage, but every 5 seconds ish is their attack. And so, like, well, that's only doing an average of about 20 damage a second, and I heal back 24. So the drone can't kill me, but constantly whiffing from the drone is not a lot of fun and gets frustrating. And I tried to explain to Statesman that frustration is not automatically not fun, right? When you're frustrated, you're automatically not having fun, because nobody has fun being frustrated. Nobody. Right? When you're annoyed, when you're aggravated, when you're grinding your teeth in frustration, you're not having fun. And nobody but a masochist would enjoy doing that. You'd have to have something really wrong with you to be like, yay, I'm frustrated. Nobody wants to be frustrated. That's not the same thing as having a challenge. I want a challenge. Right? This thing is a bit of a challenge, right? I've had to heal myself. I've had to move around to get out of his AoEs. That's not frustrating. That's an interesting tactical challenge, and I'm happy to do it. Right? But if you are annoyed because of the way something is working, you're not having fun. You're automatically not having fun. And so, like these guys, at this level, they're a tactical challenge, right? We've got a sapper, got an operations engineer. If we one-shot the sapper, the operations engineer will have a chance in between when I one-shot the sapper and when I execute my next blow to summon his auto turret, which is going to be very hard to fight, right? If I one-shot the operations engineer, the sapper can drain my endurance while I'm killing this guy. And so the question is, pick your poison, which one's worse? And you're making a tactical decision. So that part I don't mind. But if I'm constantly whiffing them, that is frustrating, right? And so I tried to explain to Statesman that there's a huge difference between frustration and difficulty, and a difficult challenge is not necessarily one that's going to be frustrating, right? I don't get frustrated by playing a really good game of chess against a friend of mine. I am challenged by it. I don't find that frustrating, right? What would be frustrating is if I'm playing him and he keeps walking away from the board to do something else and making me sit there and wait, right? That's not making the game harder, it's just frustrating me, right? And so I remember having a long discussion with Statesman about this, and he just never seemed to understand or want to acknowledge that. I guess the problem was he didn't want to admit, let's put it this way, that many of the things that they put into the game, especially in the upper levels, that they thought were making the game harder were really just making the game more frustrating, right? Things like those big, giant, massive outdoor missions, which at the time I was having these arguments with Statesmen, were filled with white cons that pose zero danger to your character, and you have to go through the entire map doing a defeat all just because they think that defeating an entire map full of 200 white con spawns that pose no risk to you but take an hour and a half to do is quote unquote hard. And it isn't hard, right? It's just annoying, it's frustrating, it's time consuming, but spending time does not mean that it's hard, right? And the analogy, in fact, at one point that I used was it takes me 45 minutes to drive into work because I have a really annoying long commute. The commute isn't fun, and it's not hard, right? It's not difficult to drive in traffic, right? It's bumper to bumper traffic. You're not really going anywhere. Seattle at rush hour is just boring bumper to bumper traffic. It's not hard. It's not difficult. It's just annoying, right? Frustrating, time consuming, right? Length of time does not equal difficulty, right? So making it take 10 minutes to defeat a villain who has no chance of killing me in that 10 minutes is not making it hard. It's just making it take a long time, right? It's much more challenging to fight a villain that it only takes you a minute to kill, but every second of that minute, they could kill you back, right? So the Richty drones, which can see through my hide and have this ridiculous dodging ability that's just way beyond anything a minion should have, right? The Richty drones are not a challenge. They're not. They're annoying and frustrating, and they take a long time to kill, but they're not hard to kill, right? It's not a difficult challenge. It's not hard, right? On the other hand, if you look at something like fighting, say, a sapper and 2 operations engineers, right? That's potentially more difficult because it's not just taking time. You have to figure out tactically, who do I kill first? How do I arrange it so that these guys don't summon the thing that they're trying to summon, right? And so, yeah, he never seemed to want to acknowledge, or just never seemed to be willing to admit, I guess, is maybe the issue, that a lot of the so-called challenges that he was putting into the game were really just time sinks, and the game was treating taking a long time as if it were in and of itself difficult, right? But taking a long time to do something doesn't necessarily make it hard. It just makes it take a long time. And if you're bored while it's happening, or if you're frustrated while it's happening, or if you're aggravated while it's happening, then you're not having a good time, because boredom and frustration are not fun. And especially if it's going to take a really long time while you're bored and frustrated, well, this is about the worst combination you can have, because now it's going on and on for a really long time, and who would want to spend a really long time being bored or frustrated or both. So I had many, many long debates with Statesman about this. He definitely never wanted to see it my way, and I think part of the reason was essentially vested interest, right? And the sunk cost fallacy, where you've sunk so much into something that you feel like you can't change it because you've sunk so much into it. And they had sunk so much into a system that really was as good as City of Heroes is at the low to mid-level game. It's not robust in the upper level game to the increasing power levels of the heroes. And I've said this before, they really never built the design. They really never designed the game for the upper levels. They designed the game and had the game work well at the low to mid levels. And the players in beta tests never really got into the upper levels to test them, which is why the upper levels are way too easy, and why players, by the time they're this level, are setting everything on +2 and +3, right? Maybe even +4 if they've got, sets. The reason is that they just made a game that couldn't scale up. And the reason it didn't scale up is because the difficulty was set based on things taking a long time to do instead of being based on them being actual challenges. And so the things that were actual challenges in the lower levels became not very challenging in the upper levels. And so a great example of that would be Mez. We just got hit with some Mez, right? And the thing is, with Mez defense, the way it increases, we have 10 hold protection now. We started with like a 7 mag. The way it increases, the way it works is you're pretty much proof, 100% proof against holds and other things once you have in place your toggle defense or whatever, your defense toggle or your practice brawler, whatever it happens to be. And so then Mez goes from being an actual challenge in the lower levels when you don't have Mez protection, right, to being irrelevant once you have it. Right? So it's like once you have Mez protection, you can ignore it. And if you don't have Mez protection, it's just going to brutalize you. And so this is one of the problems, is that the game was really hard when you didn't have Mez protection, and then when all the tankers and brutes and grabbers and stalkers are running about Mez protection, that's half the characters in the game, all of a sudden that's not so hard anymore. It's not as much of a challenge anymore. And they didn't really have a good way of upping the challenge once just having Mez wasn't really challenging anymore. They really didn't have anywhere to go with that. And so it's a great game in the lower levels, and then as you get to the upper levels, it's definitely clear that there are some limitations on what the design of the game can provide you. And rather than redesigning the game, which they really didn't have any ability to do without, essentially doing nothing for like a year and a half while they rebuilt everything, they basically just kept adding more and more kind of patches on top of it to improve the challenge to the best they could. And frankly, most of it was time-based or frustration-based, rather than making it actually be more difficult and in a rewarding way. And I think they never really got the alchemy of that right. I think this game is absolutely perfect until about 35th to 40th level, and then after that, it's still a great game, but it's not as good as it was. And I think the reason is that they really never tuned these upper level missions quite right. If you make them +3 and +4, they are more of a challenge, but they're frustrating in unbelievable ways. With Silver Phoenix at +2 times 2 or +2 times 3, I was getting really frustrated at the defeat all mission because that's a lot more enemies that you have to take out by yourself, because it was designed for a 2 or 3 person team. And now the map that had 50 guys on it has 150 guys, and it takes you forever, right? And so I feel like they never really got the alchemy of the upper levels right. They added all this patchwork, enhancement sets, and incarnate trials and all this stuff that are designed to paper over the fundamental issues that exist with the way the game scales after 40th level. And that all happened because they never beta tested the last 10 levels. They went live with levels 1 to 40, and in fact, they didn't really test the 30s that well. The most testing they did was from 1 to 30, and that's why the game is almost perfect from 1 to 30. Starts to get a little shaky in the upper 30s, but is still pretty good, and then begins to become much shakier in the 40s. And it doesn't help that the 40s are also like take us as long to do the 40s as it takes you to get to 40 from level 1, and that making it take a really long, and that it takes a lot less time than it did when the upper 40 to 50 levels came out, right? Because they reduced the requirements, but it used to take even longer. So not only are the upper 10 levels the weakest in terms of the way the game plays, the way the story arcs are done, and all of that, but they also take up like half your character's existence, right? Not the 20% that it represents of the level range, but actually more 50 to 60% of the time you spend with your character is in these upper 10 levels, and then end game as much as you want. And I feel like that's the weakest content, and they make you experience it the most. So I really wish the dev team had been able to keep the alchemy that they had going in the first 30 to 35 levels in the last 10 to 15 levels. And I feel like they got close, but it's just not as good as it is in the lower levels. Okay, so that's enough of a rant about that. We got a clue, and he says, those bands are certainly unique, kind of pretty too. Ellie's been looking into them, and she thinks they may help us bring the fight to Vanessa DeVore. So now we're going to go after her. But if we check the time, we're at 27 minutes, so I think we've done enough for today. I hope you've enjoyed. One of the really nice things about me having stopped for a while until I could get caught up with uploading and accidentally doing way too many missions for Crimson, thinking that he was going to give me a star arc, and he never did, is I've got completely caught up on the video, so I'm actually going to post this video either the day I recorded it today or maybe early tomorrow. So you guys are caught up with me now, and everything you're seeing is almost live. And the same thing will be true with that Satisfactory. I don't have any backlogs anymore, of course, other than the videos that I recorded that Homecoming won't let me post. I don't have backlogs anymore, so we're going to be doing this live, and you'll be seeing it pretty much the day of or the day after I do it. So feel free to make comments, and now I can actually incorporate them almost immediately. And keep your eye on things, because after we get this character to level 50 and do some incarnate stuff with her, it's going to be time to switch over to our mastermind, our Nightmare Lass, our demon summoning, whip wielding, pain causing mastermind, and see what it's like to play a totally different archetype. Until then, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes Rebirth.